Whether it's around the country or your town or county, decisions are being made every day that impact real people and real communities. Welcome to the Rural View, where we open the window for you to view Wisconsin farmers and rural residents and get a glimpse into the challenges they face.
Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Rural View podcast. I am one of your hosts, Amy Eckelberg, here with my co-host, Jim Wren. And we have a guest here today, Tyler Wenzlaff with Wisconsin Farm Bureau, a familiar face to our Farm Bureau family. So, Tyler, we're going to just dive into it today. You are our Director of National Affairs, so you're our go-to on a lot of the big national issues. So why don't you just share with us a little bit about yourself, what you do for Farm Bureau, all that good stuff?
Sure. As you said, my name is Tyler Wenzlaff. I'm the Director of National Affairs for the Wisconsin Farm Bureau. I've been in this position for about 6.5 years or so. I really consider myself a liaison between our members and our board of directors and the congressional delegation and our federal government. So I will try to do my best to set up meetings, and when we have visits out in DC, I try to set up an agenda for us to have meetings with different agencies, visit embassies, and then also speak with our congressional delegation, which includes our representatives and senators. And so it's kind of a big catch-all for the federal government, dealing with different issues that affect agriculture, mostly dairy, but across the agricultural spectrum as well.
Yeah, and recently we've gotten, I'd say, what we could call some national attention. We've had quite a few high-profile visits come to our state within the last few weeks here. We not only had Secretary Rollins, but also Secretary Kennedy and also President Trump. Do you want to kind of share Wisconsin Farm Bureau's role in those visits and maybe just give us a brief summary of what all of those looked like?
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to help coordinate some of those visits and set up roundtables with each of those secretaries and also the president. And so I think it really shows the power of Wisconsin agriculture and the power that Wisconsin farmers and rural residents have within the federal government at this point in time. They understand that they were put here really by Wisconsin farmers, and they understand that keeping them informed on what's happening at the federal government and what they're doing to help ease some of the pressures that the Wisconsin farmers are feeling. And so what we did was help coordinate some of the members so they could speak with Secretary Rollins and Secretary Kennedy. And we really spoke with Secretary Kennedy, the importance of dairy labeling. So one of the things that we've been working with FDA, which is underneath Secretary Kennedy's Health and Human Services Agency, is the labeling of dairy as both milk and soy as a dairy product. So under guidance by FDA, it says that anything that comes from a mammal should be considered a dairy product. Well, they've also issued guidance that says, well, even though soy is a product of nuts, that it can still be labeled a dairy product. And we've been kind of working with them to clarify their guidance that this is not exactly, the consumers are smarter than what they think they are, and that they can tell the difference, and that it's milk that comes from nuts is not the same. It does not provide the same nutritional value as those that come from cows or goats. So we helped set up a visit with them and made sure that our members were able to speak with them directly, both Secretary Kennedy and Secretary Rollins. And then also when the president came, we worked with the administration and his advanced team to make sure that we had members that were able to meet with him beforehand and speak to on his roundtable about the importance of Wisconsin dairy. Unfortunately, one of our members was not able to speak, but we were able to have that opportunity, and the administration recognized that Wisconsin Farm Bureau is a leader in ag policy, not only identifying issues, but proposing solutions to solve those as well.
Yeah, and I think as one of the staff members that sometimes helps you get ready for these visits, it's also important to kind of emphasize for especially our members listening too that these visits all kind of have sometimes a focus area. So I think a lot of times our job is to try to find the right members to represent the different policy topics. And I think for those who attended the different visits that we're a part of, I think they felt like they were there and they could speak to whatever the topic was. But I guess any other insider knowledge when it comes to these visits. And I was just going to say they move really fast. So that's kind of my takeaway is sometimes we don't know about them until days before. And so it's a crunch time thing.
Getting 3 days notice is a lifetime. Sometimes we don't even get that much. So it's very hectic. They are very difficult to coordinate, but each member is selected for a purpose in knowing that they will deliver the message that Wisconsin farmers need. And it's a high responsibility. If you're asked to be participate in one of these, you don't get a lot of opportunities to do this. They don't go to a lot of states to do this kind of stuff. And having 3 visits and the vice president not too long ago before that, I think earlier this year, it shows the power that Wisconsin Farm Bureau has in Wisconsin farmers overall. I think that, there's not a ton of organizations that they reach out to for these kind of things, and having us involved in all those is a high praise for what we do. And I think for our members that they come in prepared to talk about what they want to talk about and give good insight.
Can you talk a little bit more with the labeling, what has been done so far? I mean, I've seen in stores labeling being one word. So instead of soy milk separated, it's one word, soy milk or oat milk or, whatever. And as far as that and the labeling that and the work that's been done so far, and as well as obviously that's not the only reason why they came here. If you could talk a little bit about what else, what was their mission here in Wisconsin?
Yeah, so when it comes to the FDA and labeling of dairy products, we want to ensure that the consumer knows what they're purchasing in terms of if it is labeled milk, it is from a mammal and not from a nut. Nuts don't produce milk as much as we can try to pretend that they do. They just don't.
Right.
And it's important to remember that FDA has guidance that says, word for word, a dairy product comes from a mammal. And so all we're asking FDA to do is enforce their own guidance. And unfortunately, when we've tried to reach out to them to meet with them, we've been kind of given a lot of reasons why they can't meet with us, unfortunately. So, when we have an opportunity to meet with the secretary and when we meet with congressional representatives as well, we have to make sure that we understand that this is an issue that we want to talk about. We think this is somewhere that can help. And like a lot of things that we are going to talk about today, it is not a silver bullet to fix the dairy industry. But all this stuff helps. If you start rolling some of these things up and start getting some of these wins, it shows that Congress is listening. It shows that the administration cares about farmers. It sends the message that Wisconsin farmers are doing the right things, that they care about the American farmer, they care about Wisconsin farmers, and you start to build some of this momentum and start creating some of these domestic supply and domestic markets. Because as we've seen, export markets can be a little bit crazy, and we're shifting policies as the administration does via tweet or X or whatever you want to call it. So building that domestic market can create a little bit more stability for American agriculture. And then some of the other things that we talked about with the secretary include things like, where we can go with the MAHA movement and how farmers can help with that, and where we believe that we have a lot of agreement on. And it's important to remember that Wisconsin farmers and farmers in general, we create the ingredients. We create wholesome ingredients for these products. We are not the ones that make the overall product itself. We're the things that we grow that go into these products are wholesome and they are perfectly safe. And we want to make sure that the secretary understands that we're here to help with what he's trying to do.
I was going to kind of pivot a little bit. We talked a little bit about labeling, but in general, what are your big topics right now on the national level?
Yeah, so we got a lot of issues going on right now. We've got a farm bill that we're working on. We're working on E15. We're working on wolves. We're working on a whole host of issues: trade, tariffs, fertilizer issues, seed, monopolies within the different industries. But a lot of this stuff, Farm Bill, E15, has been taken care of by the House, and we're the main game that we're looking at is in the Senate and trying to get those bills passed. There's a lot of conversation going on right now about what a farm bill will look like, but it's important to remember that 90% of what we would consider a traditional farm bill was completed in the One Big Beautiful Bill last year. And so what we're looking at now within the farm bill is kind of making sure that we have everything in place and just modernizing some of the things that we put in place with the One Big Beautiful Bill, and then also making sure that some of the specialty crops are taken care of as well. And so, there's a lot of things still going on with Congress. They're running out of time in this congressional session. It's June now with when we're recording this, and we only have 5 months left, and a lot of that's going to be taken up with summer recesses that they have, and then election period when, they all go home and are in their districts. So there's still a lot of work for Congress to get done.
So let's talk about the Farm Bill for just a minute here. It's a very, very complex piece of legislation. And how come it always gets so spicy? I guess. Like, why is it so controversial? Why can't we just get a Farm Bill done when we need it done? What is always the holdup with this piece of legislation?
Well, it always seems to be something different, I think, depending on the day. So a lot of this comes from the way that the Republicans in Congress have attacked this farm bill, this edition. So traditionally, a farm bill is put together with, you have your agricultural issues, and then you have your SNAP issues, your food programs, and they typically are brought together. That brings urban legislators together with rural legislators, and because there's something in there for everybody, and they all find a way to come together and pass a coordinated agriculture policy for the next 5 years. Well, this Congress decided to go a different direction. So they split off the food program and basically split up the farm bill of what we normally know it as. And they attacked the food portion of it already, and now they have to finish the agriculture portion. And that's where we lose what is normally a coalition together, and it gets a lot more difficult when you can't bring both sides together to find some compromise. And so, we were out in D.C. a week and a half ago, and we talked to Senator Johnson's office, we talked to Senator Baldwin's office, and we're like, okay, we're hearing what we think are some of the issues that are holding up a farm bill. What are you guys hearing? And it was some of the similar issues. It's whether we're going to have some of the states pay for the administrative costs of the SNAP program. This was a change that was made in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Well, some of the states are going to take a bigger responsibility in administrating the food programs, the SNAP programs, depending on your error rates as a state, whether you have a higher rate of fraud or not. That will determine the amount that you pay in administrative costs. Luckily, Wisconsin has a very low error rate, and so we'll pay on the lower end of administrative costs. And in Wisconsin, state legislators have been very cost conscious over the last 8 years in terms of their budgeting. So they have the money there available. But a lot of other states are not in the same position that Wisconsin is. They can absorb those costs. And so this is one of the things that is holding up, at least that we're hearing, that is holding up the Farm Bill at this point, is that those urban legislators are holding on to the hope that they can delay implementation of the administrative costs for the states for a little bit longer, because that implementation date is coming up soon.
So we still don't have essentially a date that, they're thinking this is going to be done with in the Senate.
Well, we have so, you talk to Senator Bozeman's office, who is the Senate chair for the Agriculture Committee, and he's been talking, the language will be out in weeks, not months. That was months ago. And so then it's been, the last couple of weeks, it's been the language will be out within days, not weeks. And weeks have gone by. And so at this point, he's saying, okay, well, we're going to for sure see this magical bill. That's by the end of the week. This is coming out by the end of the week, and they're going to have a public hearing on it, which they call it, and you can offer amendments. They call it the markup. So it's kind of the term that they use on the federal side. So they're going to have a markup by the end of July and August. Well, you start putting that calendar together in your mind and you say, okay, well, they're going to start having markup in a month, maybe month and a half. The Farm Bill extension runs out at the end of September 30th.
Mm.
You're facing what is called by economists as the dairy cliff, January 1st. And so you start putting the timeline together and how fast Congress moves, and you start thinking, well, is this likely to get done during this congressional session with elections smashed in between all of this? And you start thinking, place, that is a big, that is a hefty lift to get done before November, the first Tuesday in November. And so I think what you're looking at, the most likely scenario is another extension. And I don't think anybody really wants to see that because, boy, you think about the elections and what the results may be and what this administration is and what Congress could look like moving forward. And you're like, how does this ever get done? If this doesn't get done with Republicans holding the trifecta, how does this ever get done? And it is a big issue to think about. Keeps me up at night, giving me headaches, spinning about how do we get this done. But it is a big problem that Congress is staring at right now.
Tyler, you used the phrase the dairy cliff. Do you want to just kind of explain what does that mean?
Sure. So when the Farm Bill runs out, dairy is the first commodity that would get hit by the end of the Farm Bill because it is a 365, 24/7 operation, right? So if the Farm Bill runs out, the rest of your commodities, they don't get sold or they don't get harvested or planted until 4 months, 5 months, 6 months down the road. Dairy would be the first thing that would be hit. And so when you talk about the Farm Bill running out, it would cease to exist. It would revert back to federal permanent law, which was set in stone in 1949. And so dairy being the first commodity to get hit would then revert back to 1949 law. And so that means that USDA would then begin to start having to purchase dairy commodities, milk, butter, cheeses at 1949 levels plus inflation. So you start thinking about what inflation has done, just even food prices at the grocery store, and you go revert back to 70 years, you're looking at the cost to USDA and the federal government being in the billions per month that they would have to do if we do not have an extension of the Farm Bill. And so it was put in there on purpose. This is not a flaw, it is a feature. It is designed to get Congress off their butts to do something. And so if that ultimately doesn't push them to do something, nobody knows what would do it then.
It's kind of wild to think about.
Yeah. I guess what worries me is, we went through a lot just shutting down the government for a couple months here not too long ago.
Yeah, and you think about it, you think, oh, well, this would be great for farmers. They'd be, the U.S. government would be purchasing products at this elevated level. And initially, it probably would. It probably would increase dairy prices. But then you think about what happens, okay, finally they do get some kind of extension done because it can't last
forever. Like a
forever.
Sugar high.
Or they get a Farm Bill done, you have all these all this product stocked up in warehouses. That all has to go onto the market. It floods the market and it depresses prices. And you have markets that all of a sudden shut off because the price is too high that people can't buy it. It creates mass chaos moving forward.
Yeah, I can see why you can't sleep at night. Any other questions on the Farm Bill, Jim? I just was thinking about all the different aspects of it, and it is just a mammoth of a piece of legislation.
It's a mammoth undertaking that, obviously takes years to do, and obviously I hope we can get it done. But when we were out there earlier this spring, they were saying it was going to be a couple days away or a week away, and we should be good to go. Well, here we are in
Yeah,
June, and
we're running up against it right now, and I think that Wisconsin Farm Bureau, American Farm Bureau, we're supporting the House version that was passed. We're hearing rumblings that a Senate version, like I said, is on the way, but it's not going to include a Prop 12 fix. And while that's important to Wisconsin farmers, but you start talking to some of the other farmers in Iowa, in Minnesota, that are more invested in the hog industry, and that becomes a very big point of contention if that is not included. And so you start to lose support within even the farm bureaus if there are certain aspects that are not included. And so it's a tightrope that they must walk, and I do not envy their position at all. But
I think
this is
that's
very important to remember. They created these problems.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that I think that's the uniqueness of Farm Bureau. With something as complex as a farm bill, it's one of those things where we have members of all different sizes, types, commodities, and even just trying to find consensus on, that within ourselves is quite a project. So diving into a different topic now, wanted to spend some time talking a little bit about labor. We had Emily from Great Lakes Egg Labor on the podcast not too long ago, and we spent a lot of time talking about the topic of labor. But when it comes to legislative fixes, where are things at? What do we have to show for anything moving on that front? Because we know that's a really big challenge for our farmers.
Yeah, so it's been a hot button issue for quite a while now. The labor issue and immigration kind of tied together somewhat and somewhat not. We have a lot of ideas on what should be proposed in terms of how to address labor. Not a lot of solutions so far. So Representative Van Orden has his own legislation that he has proposed. G.T. Thompson, who is the House Agriculture Chair, has a bill out there that he recently proposed as well. The administration has come out with their own ideas as well. They have recently proposed extending H2A program to the dairy industry, clarifying guidance, as we talked about earlier with the FDA. This is new clarifying guidance from USDA in terms of how dairy can take advantage of H2A. So we have a lot of options to choose from. I don't know that any of them are going to be moving forward, but the clearest indication so far is that we have something from USDA in terms of guidance that will allow some dairy farms to take advantage of it. If I was a dairy farmer, I would look into seeing if this program is appropriate for you and if it would work for your certain situation, because it's not going to work for everybody. It does not give them, the full 365 that dairy farms operate on. It's going to give them an 8-month opportunity to bring somebody in, and they have to show that it is part of a seasonal operation, whether it's breeding, calving, or harvest. So it's not a fix all. It is something that dairy farmers should look at to see if it works for their operation.
because inside of that, I mean, they literally can't even milk cows.
Outside of the clarifying guidance, they cannot. No, and even in this new guidance, they have to show that they are going to be working on a seasonal part of dairy operating, which is calving,
Harvesting
or
crops,
breeding.
or
Yep. Yep.
harvesting vegetables out in a field, or flowers or whatever.
I mean, ultimately, what would be the best ask for specifically Wisconsin for a labor solution? Because I feel like we're looking at band-aid options, which is fine, like you said earlier. Any progress is decent, but what would be the best case scenario for us to get at some point?
Yeah, so best case scenario would be, what we've asked for is a 365-day option that would not commit our farmers and our workers to a touchback portion of it either. That would allow them to continue to work on their operations as they have. So it's something that we have asked for. I don't know if it's politically feasible at this point. Even the G.T. Thompson bill that deals with immigration would be only 350 days. You could stagger those contracts out so you wouldn't lose everybody at the same time. But still, it still is a touchback portion that, is very difficult to send a worker away for 2 weeks to keep in contact with them and to be able to afford that for the farmer and to bring them back again and to have somebody there either to replace them or to train somebody else is still not ideal.
You touched a little bit earlier about wolves. Can you put us up to speed on and wolves in the national level as well as the state level?
Yeah, so at the state level, we have been working with the DNR on the Wolf Management Committee. So Josh Calloway is our representative on the Wolf Management Committee. That committee is in charge of setting a quota if wolves were ever to be delisted at the federal level. And they are continuing to meet. They've met 2 or 3 times, and I think they have another meeting relatively soon, I think. I think it's coming up at the end of the month. So they're still staying busy, and they're trying to prepare Wisconsin in case a delisting would ever happen at the federal level. So we've been working with Congressman Tiffany's office and Senator Johnson's office to move forward with H.R. 845. That is the Pet and Livestock Protection Act. That would delist the wolves at the federal level. There would be a cutout for the Great Lakes wolf population. It would also not allow that to be challenged in court. So that would take away judicial review. That is actually the most important part of all this, because at the federal level, over the last 2 administrations, it's been pretty bipartisan, really. Both administrations have delisted the wolves through agency rules. The problem with that is that is then challenged in a court out in California, San Francisco, wherever. And it's challenged out there, and they come back and say, look, because wolves haven't populated their traditional habitats, then they are not recovered. Well, if you look at the traditional habitat of the gray wolf, it's all the way down in Chicago. Nobody wants wolves running around downtown Chicago. So, that's not realistic that that's ever going to happen. And so that judicial review portion of the bill is the key to it, so that we can't have it challenged back in court and overturned. And the Trump administration is ready to publish a rule that delists the wolves. But we're trying to do it legislatively so that we don't have that judicial review portion of it.
Can we just take a step back first and foremost about why, we just kind of said, let's talk about wolves. Why have we been talking about wolves in Wisconsin for so long, and why is it an issue for our farmers? I actually was at a wedding this past weekend, and I started talking about wolves with this woman who is at the wedding, and I thought, wow, that wasn't on my bingo card for tonight, but it was such an interesting conversation because, she lives in Madison, and I don't even know how we got on the topic. It was something about wildlife. She was like, the topic of wolves came up, and talk about the farmer impact. Why do we talk about wolves at Wisconsin Farm Bureau first and foremost?
Yeah, so Wisconsin has, and if you look at Wisconsin, you look at Minnesota, and really the upper peninsula of Michigan, we have the highest concentration of wolves in the entire country. There's, some people will put our population at around 1,300. I think you could conservatively say there's at least 1,800 in the state, probably 2,000. But we have some of the highest depredation issues in the entire country, which means that depredation is when we have an event on a farm that includes wolves attacking livestock on the farm. In Wisconsin, we have some of the highest depredation rates in the entire country. We have between 50 and 80 depredation events each year, which leads to hundreds of thousands of dollars in payment. And so what you're looking at is that account is funded typically if we have wolves delisted, that account that pays for the depredation events, that account is paid by licensing fees that hunters pay when they have a season. If wolves are listed, then that account is paid for by the state and by federal funds. That account is running low. And so if we don't start to see either replenishment of the account or a season being restarted, payments to farmers will have to be prorated over the entire year. And so if you have an event early in the year, you will not get paid until later in the year. And if you've seen cattle prices lately, those prices are not keeping up with market value. And so, one of the things that we've seen is that it's not just the individual event that has to be paid for. It's the loss of security. It's the loss of future revenue, the mental toll that it takes when you have an event like that, and continuous events. The DNI will come and they'll put up noisemakers. they'll put up some of these non-lethal things that are supposed to stop wolves from coming to your place, but they work for a limited time, and all they do is push the problem down to the next farm. And
Mhm.
one of the things that they are proposing is to have other animals, donkeys, jackasses on your farm. These will help stop. Well, we've seen an event in northern Wisconsin where that animal that was supposed to stop that was killed as well. You can't put fences around all the farms in northern Wisconsin. That's just not realistic. And so until we have a season, we're going to continue to see these events. We're going to continue to see the financial toll on farmers, and you're going to see the emotional and stress that's put on farmers as well. And we've been working with our congressional friends to help try to get something done. We've been working with the administration. We think we're close. We think we're close. We have what we think are both Wisconsin senators on board. We've been working with our friends over with the National Cattlemen's Association. We're working with our friends on the other farm bureaus to try to make sure to get their senators on board. And so it's been really an all hands on deck effort over the last 6 to 8 months, and we've been pushing hard on this. And we think we're close. We know we're looking at the dates similar to what a farm bill is, and seeing that November election date, that first Tuesday in November coming up, and we believe we need to get something done by that point, or it's just not going to happen anytime soon.
Has anything been done to help manage the wolf herd, as of now that we can, keep it in check?
Yeah, when they're listed on the federal endangered species list, there is very little that a farmer can do unless their own life is at risk. They can't even intervene during a depredation event. And so it is very limiting on what options there are for farmers. Like I said, they can reach out to the DNR when they have if they have a suspected depredation event. USDA will come out and look at the evidence to see if they can confirm it. If they have a confirmed event, there are some non-lethal measures that they would be eligible for that that USDA and DNR would pay for. But again, these things don't last forever. They don't work forever, and they just push the problem down the road.
So if a farmer
Yeah.
has an animal being killed by a wolf, they can do nothing.
They can do nothing.
They can do nothing. That is dramatic.
Unless it comes after
Yeah.
them.
Yep. Unless the farmer is at risk, they can do nothing. And if they do, they could be at risk of a fine for killing an endangered species.
A federal
I think
fine.
that's yeah,
Mhm.
and that's something that's interesting about the Endangered Species Act because I remember you explaining this to me quite a few years ago, but the whole purpose of it is to hopefully restore, these populations that got so minimal. And that is truly what happened with wolves. I mean, they're very populated. They're very much back. And I think that's the hard part is that we've done exactly what we wanted to. And I think that's also another message from our farmers is that they don't want the wolves to go away completely. I think that's the thing is I think everyone can understand they're part of our ecosystem. They're very important. But when you have too many of them, they don't necessarily become a healthy part of our ecosystem anymore. They become a very damaging system when they're not managed to any degree.
Yeah, and I think that's the point that a lot of people lose is that we're not out here trying to remove them from the landscape. We understand they are here they're part of the biological diversity that Wisconsin is known for. We have a lot of different creatures in our environment, and that's great. They are part of the landscapes, especially now with the decrease in number of hunters. You're going to see more deer out there. This is important for the deer to be managed at an acceptable level too, because you end up having more car accidents because of them, and so they're an important part of the ecological balance that is part of Wisconsin. And so, but we just want to make sure that they are managed at an appropriate level. And it has been shown over and over again that when you have them managed to an acceptable level that keeps them still on the landscape, you decrease the number of predation events to more of an acceptable level. And one of the things that we've talked about, not only at wolves, but a lot of things that there's a social license that goes with some of this stuff. There's a license that the the population will accept wolves. They will accept certain things on the landscape up to a certain level. And once it goes beyond that level, you start to see some pushback. And we want to make sure there isn't that pushback, that they stay on the level that they're at, and that we can manage them at an appropriate level to keep that social license going, and we don't have the pushback that you might see that under other industries have seen as well.
Yeah.
And really, when you, like you talked about, wolves should be celebrated as a conservation success story. That they were brought back not because we reintroduced them; they naturally flowed from Canada, Minnesota, and over to Wisconsin. I mean, it's a fantastic success story that should be celebrated, and what the Endangered Species Act was put in there for.
Tyler, do you want to talk about your work with policy and development at all?
Yeah, I thought you'd never ask. One of the most interesting portions of my job is working with the PD committee, right? So it's why we exist, right? We're a member-driven organization. Our policy is set by our members, right? So we're a grassroots organization. It's our policy is not set by a board or an executive director or a president. It's set by our members every year, and so we are in the middle. I would say the middle of our policy development process. And so that starts in early April, where we have a time when our policy development committee comes down to Madison. We have a new member orientation that kind of goes through what new members should expect to see on the policy development team, on the committee, and some tips that they've gotten from members that have previously served, how best to communicate with their counties that they represent, and how to represent their counties when they meet at the end of October, beginning of November. So we go through that, and then that's the first half of the day. The second half of the day is the full committee when they come together, and the GR department comes together, and we kind of give them a presentation about some of the issues that we are seeing, not only at the federal level, but the state level and the local level, of issues that we may not have policy or that we could use some clarification on. And so they kind of sift through those issues, and out of that they identify, maybe 3 or 4 top issues that they would like to see some additional information on. And so that's where the GR team goes to work, and we put together these issue papers that have, there's probably about a page or so, page and a half of background information, current state statutes, relative federal state statute, or any current policy that we have, either state or AFBF policy, some discussion questions for when the county PD committees meet. And those meetings will start beginning here pretty quick here, June and July, August. And then the PD committees will take those issue papers, and they'll kind of start to formulate some of the policy that they would like to work on, and some of the policy maybe that they've worked on previously. Those will all get sent. Those get passed by their PD committees, and those get all sent to the GR department. And I'll bring those together in a book. And then in late October, we'll meet on Tuesday and Wednesday. I think it's the 28th and 29th of October of this year. The whole committee will come together, and we'll meet on Tuesday and Wednesday. First day is all state issues. So we're going through, last year there was about 300 to 400 resolutions that we're going through that were passed by the individual counties. And we'll go through most of those on that first day and try to get to transportation. And then the second day is finishing out the state policy book and resolutions, and then going through the ones that address federal issues as well. And so then after that, they'll pass those resolutions, and then those will be put together into a book for our delegates that come together in December. And we'll meet on Monday of the business session of the annual meeting and talk about resolutions, and those will go forward. And then after those are passed, we meet, President Olson and I go out to DC the following week, and we work in a similar process as the state PD committee. We'll work individual committees at the federal level and review all the federal policy that comes from the different states as well, that pertain to different sections of the book, the AFBF policy book. And then all the delegates to get together from the different 51 farm bureaus, and we'll meet at the annual meeting in mid-January. This year it's out in Charlotte, and we will pass the AFBF policy book.
I think that's a good reminder. We have had members that have had federal policy changes made, right?
Yeah, we usually have between 6 to 8 different policies that we usually move forward with that get passed into the federal book. It's been really interesting. So the federal process from when I started to now has kind of evolved. not in the laid out process of how it works, but in the way that the different states can contribute to policy. So when I first started, it was the different Farm Bureau presidents, and staff was in the room, but they weren't allowed to speak unless you were spoken to or asked a question. Well, now the individual staff from those states lead the discussion on that. So it's quite amazing, because I will sit in subsection 2, which deals with dairy. I'll sit in that committee every year, regardless of where President Olson sits in which committee, and that's rotated. The members of those committees are rotated each year so that they get different parts of the book each year in committees. But I will sit in subsection 2, and that deals with dairy. And the last 2 years, when we come to dairy for the individual policy resolutions, it's okay, Wisconsin, what do you think about this? I'll be able to give our opinion on the different resolutions. It's quite amazing how much influence we have, not only in federal with dealing with our legislators, but also dealing with the AFBF and how they look for Wisconsin to lead on dairy policy. And it's really a sign of respect to what our members have done and the efforts that they put forward and the different presidents that we've had and how much they can contribute to dairy policy and in their knowledge of dairy policy.
Yeah, that
Well, we
is
are
quite
the dairy
impressive.
state, right?
Yeah. I think I have one last question for you, and that is just kind of I feel like we could talk to you for hours, but I know we all don't want that in one chunk. We need to, pace ourselves with all of these different
We could
topics,
we
right?
could talk about whatever you want, Amy. We could talk for me and Jim, and you guys could just talk about whatever you want. We could talk for hours.
No, well, I was just gonna say, if our members are listening, what are some of these topics that they should be watching for that are either coming up? I know you mentioned E15. Maybe just give us, the kind of cheat sheet of what are they going to be seeing and what is going to be talked about here in the next maybe, 3 to 6 months that they should be paying attention to.
Sure, I'll give you my top 3 and maybe a couple honorable mentions.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So number 1 is Farm Bill, right? So where are we going with Farm Bill? That we've been promised, like I talked about earlier, we've been promised language that we're going to see an actual bill draft out of the Senate. What it contains, does it mirror largely what the House passed, or are we going to have a differences of opinion? And is that it's important to remember that in the Senate, it has to get 60 votes. Republicans only have 51 votes. So it's important that they're going to have to some way put together a farm bill in the Senate that gets 9 more Democrat votes. So that'll be the number 1 thing that we're looking for. Number 2 is going to be E15. The House passed it with some changes, and it was largely supported by Wisconsin's delegation. I think we only had maybe 1 or 2 people that voted against it. But there was an effort to try to combine that with the Farm Bill, put those 2 bills together. It doesn't look like that is going to be the case, that'll work out. So will the Senate be able to get Farm Bill done? Will they be able to get E15 done? Because right now, you'll see when you go to the pump, you'll see 15, right? But we rely on waivers from EPA, a yearly waiver, and so there are some pumps out there that will not sell E15 because they don't have the certainty that a waiver will come each and every year. You'll see, I think if you go to Quick Trips, you'll see them. They're all in, but I think until you get that permanent status for E15, there are still some pumps and brands that are not making that, and I think that would help push again that we talked about some of these domestic markets. That this does not solve the commodity issues of low prices by itself, but again, it helps. It all helps pushing forward. And then wolves. This is our best chance in a generation to get something done here, and we hope that Congress doesn't squander that opportunity. And so we're hoping that we will see something by the end of the week. It's something that we have talked with Senator Johnson's office on. They're hoping to make some kind of play within the week. I think he was going to make some kind of decision either today or tomorrow on what he was going to do. But like I said, we're standing by, ready to help. Minnesota Farm Bureau standing by, ready to help. AFBF, National Cattlemen's, we're waiting for him to give us a signal, and we're ready to help in any way that we can. And then honorable mention, I would say immigration. Are we going to see something with immigration? We saw USDA and the administration take their best shot at it. Are we going to see Congress try to do something? And I feel that's far more unlikely than some of the other issues that we're looking at.
All right. Well, that's Tyler's list.
Awesome.
I feel like you just laid your cards on the table. So we'll have to see what happens in the coming
Yeah,
time.
it's not a great hand. It's a lot of twos, threes, unconnected
I feel like your
twos.
job is a lot like farmers. It's a lot of gambling and sometimes hoping for the best.
Their job is far more important than my job, but yeah.
That was a good answer. All
Well,
right, we have to do our quick fire
we
yet.
have to be able to do our job, and we can't do that without your help. So it's a win-win for all of us.
All right, Jim, do you want to start on quick fire or do you want me to?
I will. All right.
I
So
forgot to warn Tyler about the quick fire.
What are the rules of
Yeah.
the game before I agree to participate?
I
there
just
are no
realized this.
rules, but basically
The only
what it
rule
is
there are no rules.
that's right. There are
And
no
nobody
stinking
wins.
rules. We're just going to throw questions at you. You're going to give us
Okay.
your personal answers and have fun with it. Are you nervous?
Oh boy. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Sorry, Tyler.
Probably our standard here at the Rural View is chocolate milk or white milk.
Chocolate milk all day. Yeah, that's
All
an
right.
easy call.
I'm
Mhm.
giggling a little bit
Mhm.
because we talked about policy
But
development
wait,
and
there's a caveat here. If you
Now
put
wait a
strawberry
second
milk in
here.
front of me, I will drink the whole damn thing as quickly as possible. That stuff is addicting. It is very good.
All right.
so
Very
Things to
Tyler
addictive,
remember.
but very good.
Tyler puts up the questions. So for policy development, he's the one that writes these like test questions so that we can test our voting clickers. And he loves the drama. He picks questions like these where people have a hot take. And I think it's ironic because I feel like you didn't put strawberry milk in your answer when you put this up there a few years ago. So I don't know.
Well, I
This year
think
it could
that
be.
it could be, but white milk or chocolate milk is pretty traditional. I don't like to stray off of A or B answer. Once you start getting into A, B, C, then you start,
That's
wheeling
fair.
and dealing cards that you may not be ready to handle. And so then, it's just like asking the question: is your tractor red or green? Well, I'm
Man,
sure there's
now we
some
got to
that'll
take
maybe
that
say
one off.
blue.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And
saying.
so,
He likes to ask the good ones.
but those are good questions because you want to know what your membership has inside their garages, and you want to see how the fluctuation changes, and so
All right, next question. It's almost fair season. So what is your favorite fair food?
Oh, I would say funnel
Not so
cakes.
easy.
I'd have to say funnel cakes. This is probably gonna be a hot take. Don't tell anyone, but I don't like corn dogs or any of that stuff. Don't tell anyone though. I don't like that stuff.
We won't tell a soul.
Okay,
We
good.
won't tell a soul. We'll just put
Good.
it
So
on the
strawberry
podcast and let
milk
you out.
and funnel cakes, no corn dogs.
No corn dogs.
They don't really. I don't know if they would go good together, but taken as one.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Mhm.
So
I think a fried item with powdered sugar or cinnamon or whatever strawberry to rinse it down with strawberry milk. I think is an excellent choice.
maybe untraditional, but
Well, I think that would be better than
but
a corn
you
dog.
get a lemonade from a
Oh.
food stand.
Mhm.
Those are Jim. The face you're making, I don't understand it.
Well, see, I think it's the whole. I just had the taste of a cinnamon. The sugar and the cinnamon from that, and then drinking a lemonade that would put me over the edge. I will have you know that I
Too much
spent
for your
many
palate?
summers. Yeah,
Mm.
that would give me the Zackleys. I spent many summers doing lemon shakes in my uncle's concession trailer at fairs. So
Ooh,
I'll
show it to us. How do you do it? You gotta yeah, there you go.
Exactly what I imagined.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
I need to practice.
I'll get you some lemon shakes going here. Maybe
Yeah,
at the annual meeting we'll do lemon shakes and strawberry milk.
that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
not only is it fair time, but yesterday, in June we have the longest day of the year, and it's also grilling season. So, what's your favorite thing to put on the grill?
Chicken wings. Yep.
Chicken
What?
wings?
I
Mhm.
did not see that coming. Do you have a recipe?
I do. So if you get the packets, those Grill Master packets, they used to be 99 cents. Now they're $1.09, but
Well,
whatever. But
inflation.
yeah. Um, yeah, I will use
I
the
didn't see that coming.
urban garlic ones. Oh, those are perfect. Yep. With some ranch. And it can't be just any ranch. It's a home style ranch that's the best ranch. Anybody who says otherwise is wrong and doesn't know ranch.
You should have asked a
But
ranch question. I could tell it's a
yes,
hot
Wow.
button.
We
But-
are getting in detail. I mean, this is going to be a 3-hour show, Amy.
I've thought about these issues. I have a lot of time to think.
Have you seen all of the something that my team has been talking about this week is the World Cup, and apparently Europeans are going crazy for ranch.
Yeah, I saw that TSA or it was a TSA or
Yeah.
something like that. Customs put out like you can't bring it on the plane, guys. You got to check it.
Yeah. Apparently they've never had ranch, and apparently
Yeah.
there's been like an influx and
Really?
everyone's trying to take ranch with them. Yeah.
Well, now we're going to have
Who
a
would've
shortage
thought?
here.
I know. I'm kind of thinking that. That's not good. Speaking of sports though, what's your sport, Tyler? And who's your favorite team?
I love the Packers. I'm originally from the Green Bay area, just 20 minutes south of the stadium. Our family has the gold package tickets that we buy from another family that wants to keep the tickets, but they don't. They want to keep the tickets in the family, but they don't want to go to the games. So we buy the tickets from them. So I love going to Packer games, watching them on TV. I live and die through the games. I would rather watch them after I know the result than watching during the game. And that's why going to AFBF annual meeting is very difficult because Packers always play a playoff game when we're out there.
Always.
And I hate watching Packer playoff games or Packer games in general with other people. And so it is always a difficult.
It's kind of hard to do
difficult
that there
time.
when it's on the big screen.
Yes.
Not a team
And
sport for
especially
you, huh?
last time, I'm sitting next to Steve Miller, who's, a
no.
board member, and he's a Bears fan. And they're playing the Bears in the playoffs. And we're winning. And then we're not winning. And so it's not an enjoyable time.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
I would agree with you on that one. That was not.
I don't. The Brewers are kind of there. The Bucks, meh. Watching Team USA in hockey was in the Olympics was awesome. Watching Team USA in the World Cup is awesome. But the Packers are number one. And when
Nice.
the Badgers are good at football, it's fun. But they haven't been good for a while. So
You hop off and hop on and hop off
Yeah.
that one.
yeah,
All right, we have one
All right,
last one, right,
last
Jim?
one. Favorite movie?
Better be good.
I have like a top 5. So
So give
okay,
top 5.
So when I was growing up, and if I was sick at home, the number one movie I'd always put on Gettysburg. Most people probably have never seen it. It's a 3-hour movie it's got Ted Turner and a couple other known actors. It's my all-time favorite movie. Second favorite movie is We Were Soldiers. If that's on TBS, I have to watch it. I was just like, it's on all the time. And so if I catch it, when I'm flipping through the channels or whatever, I have to stop and watch it. And then you start getting into a little bit off the board. You start talking about like Tropic Thunder, Major League 1 and 2. I can almost quote the entire movie. Jurassic Park. And then you start getting into like honorable mentions. Don't tell anyone this, but the Pitch Perfect trilogy.
Yes, that is the perfect way to wrap up this episode.
Don't tell anyone. Please don't tell anyone.
Well, I mean, you did just share it on a podcast, but also the Packers made a little blip in one of those movies, so I can kind of see the connection, I guess. Those are some good ones, Tyler. I feel like that says a lot about you right there, your movie picks. I feel like people are going to be like, huh, yeah, that makes sense.
Awkward.
Awkward. Perfect sign off. I couldn't ask for anything better. All right. Well, thank you, Tyler, for joining us on the Rural View podcast. We hope to have you back soon, and thank you for all that you do for our farmers.
Yep.
And
Thanks for all your
Oh, yeah,
work
go ahead.
in Farm Bureau out in DC, and in the big job that you do with policy and development, and helping out us local Farm Bureau members, and everything that you do for Farm Bureau. We certainly do appreciate it.
And
Thank you guys.
hopefully
Appreciate
you
it.
got some of these things off your chest and you can sleep tonight.
Yeah, I feel so much better now that I just shared it with you two and not everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. All right.
So
Thank
now
you, Tyler.
now you need to go out and get everybody to like the Rural View. So see if
Yeah, we're gonna need all your friends.
I will push it
You
out on
need
my
all your
social
friends.
accounts.
There you go.
I
You'll
hope
be
they're big.
famous. More than you
Can't
already
wait.
are.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tyler.
Wisconsin Farm Bureau is a unified voice for agriculture. When decisions are made that affect our farm, Farm Bureau makes sure I have a seat at the table. Wisconsin Farm Bureau is shaping policy, developing members, and engaging consumers. I know my concerns are heard, and I can stay focused on what matters most: feeding, clothing, and fueling my community.